I just want to sing the song. Rise
It
like
is. It's
Phoenix.
working. Oh my gosh, Christopher, thank you. Thank you for troubleshooting all that. And I'm so happy that this is working. Woohoo! Happy Tuesday. And Stephanie, it's our birthday today.
It is our official Rise Like a Phoenix birthday.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to have Raina take a look at the
Yeah, what's going on today for
I
both of
know,
us?
right? Would it be the moment we said yes, or would it be this moment of the live of episode one?
Yeah,
She'll say, let's look at
I'm
both.
sure there'll be specific conjunctions just at both points.
Oh my gosh. Well, friends, for anyone that's here with us live and for anyone that is watching this on replay, what a joy, what a long road it's been to be with you right here, right now. On so many levels. So this is officially episode one to Rise Like a Phoenix podcast. And my name is Daniela. I have such so privileged to be here with you and with my co-host and dear friend and collaborator in many things, Stephanie Hartwell, the closure coach with Emotional Intelligence Academy, EQ Academy. So, hi, Steph.
Hello. I am so excited I can barely contain myself. How long have we been talking about this? A while.
Well, we have, and this has been the theme of Rise Like a Phoenix. Let's dive in right there
Yeah.
to just to the theme of, the genesis of this and what the intention of this podcast and the many conversations to come. What we're up to and what sourced this.
Um, well, there were many things that sourced this, many conversations, generally about the same topics. We just went down so many rabbit holes. And eventually, I just remember saying to you, the world needs to hear these conversations.
I know. We wish that you all had been a fly,
Yes.
like in so many of our Zooms and sessions together. We wish that all of you were there with us because they were so rich. And Stephanie was so brilliant. It's like, well, why don't we do that, make that happen?
I remember saying to you very clearly that this is the nectar that we wish we had had in our journeys. And so we really want to share that with the world. And whoever needs it, drink from it, please. Drink from
Mm.
the experiences and the wisdoms and the insights that we're going to share with all of you that are not just our own, but have been collected from so many places and so many um, origins.
So why don't you share with everybody a little bit about what Rise Like a Phoenix has meant for you? You of the two of us, that was a really strong conscious theme. For me, it was a little more of a once my wings started flapping, I'm like, oh, it's happening. I, and it was very strong. And in your field, the metaphor, the image, and the journey of the phoenix in your path.
Yeah. Um, I actually, before we came onto the call, I looked up the origin of the rising of the phoenix. And what just so fascinates me is that it pops up in so many different cultures. It wasn't just one book or one concept, it was in ancient Egypt, Greece, Italy, in early Christianity, and then it also pops up in Persia and in China as well. And this idea that there is across language, across culture, across the whole planet, there is this core concept of both renewal, rebirth, resilience, but especially this rebirth concept after utter destruction, which
Mm.
is, of course, something that we share a lot of experience in. And so I really wanted to dive a little deeper and have a more global conversation about what is it that actually makes it possible to rise from absolutely anything.
Okay, let's just launch from there. Like,
Yes.
tell me what's in your field, in your awareness when you say that.
Well, we've discussed my journey a lot. And for those of you that don't know anything about it, I got very, very ill in 2012. I went on holiday, came back with what I thought was food poisoning, and it then cascaded into quite a severe autoimmune disease. And autoimmune disease is very unknown in mainstream medicine still, but that wasn't the half of it. It then just seemed to snowball into literally every part of my life, just imploding, exploding. My marriage fell apart, and divorce, and it just kept going. It just kept going. I'm sure Raina, the lovely Raina, will at some stage come onto the podcast and talk about Pluto transits. I now know that it was a massive Pluto transit, but at the time, of course, I did not know anything about it. And so I had to find ways to get from one day to the next. And I suppose the peculiar part of that story is I was already a coach. I was already deeply steeped in personal development. I was already long journey behind me in spirituality. And so I was kind of shocked that I was in this position because I had the approach of, me? Really? Didn't I do everything right? Didn't I breathe the right way, chant the right way, pretzel myself into the right places?
Shape. Yeah.
Yeah. And I then, I guess, also went back to all of these modalities that had so vehemently promised that if you do X, Y, Z in this kind of way, that you can change the outcome of what was happening, and just nothing did. Nothing at all did.
And before you go on, may I ask a question? Was there anyone in the spiritual circles that you were traveling with that ever invited you to take a much deeper look at your biology, at your mitochondrial functioning, at your ferritin levels? Among of any of these
Yeah.
practitioners, and many are well known that you've
Yes,
named,
absolutely, absolutely. No,
did literally
absolutely
no one
no
ever
one.
say, let's take a look at what's going on in your body?
Not a single one. And I had been part of many communities, not just one. There wasn't just a single one. I had the kind of more cognitive stoicism and like hypnosis, hypnotherapy, energy work, things like that. I tried everything, and not a single practitioner or teacher or modality at any point said anything about the body at all. And also, what happened that I know I've discussed with you a lot is I actually became quite severely bullied by a lot of people. And that was actually the biggest shock to me.
Yeah, what did they say instead? In lieu of what now to you and I is so obvious of a starting point.
Yes,
Part of the
the
intention
body.
of our of the rise like a phoenix is in Stephanie and I have both been involved in many spiritual circles and communities over decades. And this is one of the I don't want to say cruel.
Yeah,
Uh, it is dangerous. It is
I
a
agree.
dangerous aspect of being
Yeah,
in spiritual communities where the body is not equally looked at as part of what's going on for the individual.
absolutely.
So instead of
Yeah.
hearing, what were you hearing? What was it that people were saying to you?
Um, uh, it was a range of things, all the way from I was looking for sympathy and I was playing up with it, or I didn't want to take responsibility for my life, or I had attracted this, or I should just shut up about it and do the work. And clearly, I was in this position because I wasn't doing the work or hadn't done it deep enough, or hashtag sign up to the next level or the next seminar. There was always something else. And it was always, the blame always came back to me, that I had somehow gotten it wrong or was secretly, silently invested into being a victim. That word came up a lot.
And when you look back at the version of you that was exploring one spiritual community after a different modality, after what was it when you step way back and you look back at that sweet younger version of yourself? What was she seeking? What was bringing you to the different modalities? What did you want?
We've actually discussed this quite a lot. I think a lot of people, and this doesn't come from judgment at all, use spiritual marketing in a way that they promise things are going to get better, or if you do XYZ, then everything will be fine. That kind of slogan and that kind of message came over again and again and again, and I just believed it. I didn't know anything else, and so I just thought, oh well, if it wasn't this one, then it must be this modality. And also a lot of practitioners that I did see say, oh, you're still ill, or this is still happening because you haven't tried this one yet. So that kind of perpetuated the narrative as well, that it was just a matter of time until I found the right tool or the right thing. And it turned out to be absolutely none of them. Absolutely none of them. It turned out to be the body. Yeah.
And are there still any practices that you explored in these other chapters, in these other modalities that you get to experience in a beautiful and different way now that the body has been attended
Yeah.
to?
Absolutely. And I always say I'm a huge fan of all of these modalities, because when you're going through really difficult times, the path to resilience is nervous system regulation. And whatever works for you is fantastic. If you can manage to steady your nerves and calm your mind, and underneath that, tap your heart into that hope element, and in that trusting whatever you want to trust, whatever tool gets you there. But my biggest bugbear with this entire, both the spiritual and personal development community, was that, it was sold that that was the path to healing, not just actually, this is tough, you're going to have to get through it. And the good news is that actually you can alleviate the fear, the anger, the anxiety, there are actually modalities that really help that. And then, this part of my story, that I stumbled onto something that I fell absolutely in love with.
Tell us more for anybody that is maybe here for the first time, because
Well,
it sounds ridiculous.
it does sound ridiculous.
Spoiler alert,
What
friends.
is that?
It'll sound ridiculous. Okay,
The
go.
first, the first gem of the story is, of course, that my doctor, my very open-minded doctor, I'll give her credit for that, said to me, whenever you have a chronic or long-term disease, you do have to look at the mind, especially any type of trauma that happened to you. And she said there is a new modality on the block that isn't involved in any of the things that you've previously tried. It is deeply steeped in neuroscience. It's developed by two doctors, and I think you should give it a go. And yeah, I remember very distinctly, I've told you the story before, where I emailed the practitioner at that time, and she came back to me and she said, well, could you please give me a list of the 10 most difficult, overwhelming things that have happened to you? And I emailed her back with the very cocky line at the bottom, just to let you know, dot, dot, dot. I have already worked on this.
Oh, yeah. Yes. They've all been healed. Yes.
I have done the work. I have let it go. I think I even said something like that. And then when I saw her, no, actually, she emailed me back in that email and just said, "That's lovely, dear. Should we check what your body has still
How
hung
sweet. How
on
beautiful. How
to?"
beautiful and
That's
compassionate and
lovely,
wise.
dear.
Shall we just take a peek see? Just in case.
Have a look, just in case. And then when I met her as well, she said, "Thank you for your list, and I see that there's definitely some bigger things and some not so big things." And again, I don't know what possessed me. I'm like, I have done the work. I have, breathed. I have visualized. I have
You
And
have
so
aligned your chakras.
I
It
have
is done.
done, I have shifted the energy. It is all good. And she said, well, shall we go for the big one then? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then proceeded the most mind-blowing 30 minutes of my life from two perspectives. Number one, it was very quickly very obvious that my body had processed none of it. I had very clearly cognitively rearranged the furniture quite neatly to a point where I thought everything had been processed, and yet
Wait, before you go on, and what was the evidence of that? How did you,
I,
during the session,
yes,
what was the evidence that had you get that had you have that direct experience, right?
yes,
Because people can describe how our
yes,
traumas are in our body till
yes,
the cows come home. And direct experience, there's nothing like it.
yes,
So what
yeah.
was the flash of insight or realization
Yeah.
like for you?
Absolutely. So there were three very distinct parts. So, and I'll go into havening into in a minute what havening is. It's a psychosensory tool where you have to combine touch with the mind because trauma is stored in the body. And so, first thing that came up was I just got pictures and pictures and pictures in my mind that actually I had not had before. So my mind had very smartly repressed a lot of stuff. And then as the body was put into that safe space, blah, 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 all those pictures came up. So that was the first thing. The second thing was that my body was going through some process, hot, cold, clammy, sweaty, tense, relaxed. It was going on a ride that I did not have control over, but also felt incredibly safe. Like I had a really deep knowing that something very natural and very cleansing was happening. And then I suppose the really biggest piece that just blew me away is I felt actual emotions. And because of the trauma that I'd been through and all the work that I'd done, I had very neatly bypassed. I had compartmentalized.
And you
I
didn't know. And you
I
didn't.
didn't know. I absolutely didn't know. I was convinced. I was absolutely convinced that is one of my favorite words, processed it, and I was also obviously told in these modalities that by doing these mind energetic visualizing things that would be processed. Nobody at any point had told me that actually trauma sits in the physical body, and unless you use a physical tool, you are never going to get it out of your mind, your body, and your energetic system. So after the 30 minutes, then I remember sitting in front of her in absolute shock. On the one hand, because, oh my God, clearly I had spent decades in these modalities and nothing had been processed. That was the first shock. And then the second shock, however, was the absolute peace and clarity and just very divine sense of serenity that I had actually been chasing. That one of the common things I kept saying over and over again, and I think a lot of people find themselves in those words, like I get it in my head, but it never got down and sunk into my heart.
Yeah.
And it was particularly uh, a story that I worked on with my mom, and the release was so profound that I finally saw her as the little girl that she was when all those difficult things had happened to her, and it has maintained that to this day. And there
And
was nothing.
that's
Oh,
different than just on your own applying compassionate understanding and
yes,
mentally going to that place of, well, this is my mom's background. Of course, she's going to show up the way she is. Everyone's always doing the very best that they can.
yes,
Like all of that is true on the mental
yes,
body. However,
yes,
that pathway, as well intended
as well intended.
it is, will not unlock the impact of those scenes from our younger years.
Yes.
It will not unlock the impact. It's that simple. So
And
I could
also
so
very,
feel it when you describe that. That was
and
beautiful.
also it's not your body malfunctioning, it's your body doing the correct thing. What I then learned when I studied this modality called havening, where we use the touch of the hands, the arms, and the face to put the body into that safe space, is that, and this is very oversimplified, this is not a neuroscience explanation, but your body has a structure in the brain called the amygdala, and it's like a picture book. And anytime anything very stressful or overwhelming happens to you, it takes a picture, click, click, puts it in the book, and then starts walking around with this picture book, trying to keep you safe. That's the key thing. This is not your body malfunctioning. This is your body going, survival mode 101. I'm going to now start scanning the environment for anything that could possibly look like it so that I can stay safe. And the problem is that if you have either a very intense set of circumstances and trauma or overwhelming life events, or a number of them very, very quickly, then that gets clogged up like too many tabs open on your computer or too many photos on your phone storage, and then clunk, 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 the body starts to pay the price very quickly.
Side note, that is the best description of the amygdala that I've ever heard.
I like it because then it also makes sense. Because when you look at really releasing and bringing both the mind and the body to a place of relief, is you must go back to the picture. You must go back to the picture because these memories are 3D living, breathing, almost like movie clips in your mind. And what's more important, the younger version of you, whether that was 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago, is still trapped in that picture. And actually, no complete healing can take place until you go back to the picture and you rescue your younger you and you wipe out the picture, which, if you use the modality of the havening together with what I lay over it, which is a timeline therapy, then you get a complete clearance, not just a rearranging of the mental space.
The image that always comes to mind to me with this kind of work, and the practice of Ho'oponopono touches on a little
Yes.
bit of this, if that's where it takes you,
Yes.
um, is like, remember when you fold up paper and you cut out a paper doll?
Yes.
Well, when you open them all up, there are those younger versions of ourselves,
There are.
those rooms and those memories still operating in their own active universe.
Yeah.
And they show up, of course, when we're reactive. That's how we know. We can talk about triggers
Yeah.
but the process of healing, awaken and arise, is bringing those dolls back into
Yes.
alignment with
Yes.
here you
You've
are.
done sessions with me. That is a key element where we then go and integrate the younger you with you, the now you. And that is kind of the end element of the closure ceremony, because you have to rescue the younger you, and not just go in and hijack them and pick them up. You have to honor what is. You have to honor the emotions that come up for them, for you in that space, and then process it through combining the mind and the body. And of course, if you are so inclined, you can layer on a spiritual element as well, which I just think is fantastic, because then what you can do is you can go back into these pictures, calm the body, tell the body, okay, we're going to go back in it. Now that you're in a calm state, in a supported state, both by yourself and the practitioner, you can then rescue the younger you, and you can still come out of it and go, well, did I get any skills out of this? Was there a meaning? Now, it's not necessary to do that, because I do work with people who have no need to explore that. But for those people that are already on a spiritual path, I just think that's incredible, that you can then use the havening, that sense of peace and space, to get a really clear line to whatever you want to connect with, to then go, okay, so this was really tough. We've taken the heat out of the body. We've calmed the mind. What can we learn from this?
And what would you say of your fire, your before you were able to rise, your fire and the fire and ash state spanned almost a whole decade, s-
Yes.
if not longer.
Yeah.
What were and that's an enormous fire. That's a
Yeah.
that is an enormously long
God.
fire. What did it what burned away? What burned away for you?
Everything. Everything that was not true, not me. And I don't want to say anything that was wrong, because I am here today because that version of me also existed. But the life that I was living, I often look back now and I recognize her. But what what was burned through the fire was all the things that I had added to myself, beliefs, personas, behaviors that were born out of a lot of the experiences that I had early on in childhood that I didn't even know I was living out. That was the key thing for me, is like, most people don't think they've been through trauma, mostly because we've been indoctrinated by mainstream media that only, you know, extreme sexual violence or wars or bomb blasts are
Or
trauma.
terrible neglect or
Yeah, or terrible neglect,
yeah.
when actually every day you can be exposed to overwhelming life events and experiences. The biggest one that nobody talks about is grief and loss. We're just supposed to get on with it. No, that is actually a very traumatic experience, and it's all over the place. Breakups, divorces, illnesses, businesses, friendships, relationships, it's everywhere. And we're just meant to get over
Roll
it.
with it, to
Go with it.
roll with the changes.
Yes.
And well,
And
you got to move on,
and
right?
also this horrendous idea that somehow time just makes it better. No, you just get distracted with other things. Time heals nothing. Absolutely
I
nothing.
want, oh my
It's
God,
like,
that could be our tagline instead of
yeah,
heal, awake,
time
and
heals
rise. I know
nothing.
time heals nothing. It
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't. It
And
just
then,
lets it gel
oh
deeper.
my goodness. And then, of course, I had spent all this time, energy, and money in these modalities where I thought I was processing it. And actually, what I was doing is just nervous system regulating to the point where it became bearable.
Well, that's what I call the treading water, where
Yes,
many of these modalities, brilliantly effective
yes,
in your physical layer, is,
yes.
shall we call it up to snuff? Shall we call it balanced and healthy? Like, let's look, I think we want to, that could be a whole episode in itself, is what actually should we be feeling like, right? And what's actually happening in the contemporary Western woman's body, right? That's a whole other episode.
And I love that you actually placed that really important nugget, that closure and release and relief is a kind of emptiness. It's not,
Well,
you
it's
know,
neutrality. It's
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 neutrality. It's
it's
not, you know,
like amazingly fun and full of champagne bubbles and effervescence. It is
balloons, cherubs. No,
no, I think of Kim Beekman, how she always says neutrality is your greatest immunity
it is.
because it is freedom
Yeah,
from the impact of our ordinary and extraordinary wounds and traumas.
yeah.
Us into it's simply a blank canvas.
Yes.
It's
And the really important piece of that blank canvas that happened a little while afterwards that I really did not experience at all. So many things came online for me that I had been chasing for so long by doing more, and actually turned out that cleaning up gave me more presence. Cleaning up gave me more creativity. Cleaning up gave me clearer intuition, cleaning up. You know, it was
Well,
like,
right, these things we chase. How can I be more abiding in and as the
yes,
embodied state of presence
yes,
and creativity and all that? Those are
yes,
the effects of the healing work.
yeah.
Nothing to chase.
That
They
was,
are the effect.
that was like, oh no, clarity, peace, calmness, and connection is the factory standard when you clean the yuck out from the system.
And I would assert it is your access to a sustained experience of
Yeah,
yourself as a spiritual being.
absolutely.
It doesn't go the other way around,
No,
friends.
no.
So to start in the order of I'm going to focus on my spiritual life. And many of us are drawn there first.
Yeah,
And so we're here and we give our lives, Stephanie and I, you know, in our one-on-one work and in our group work and training programs, we really dedicate our lives for each of you, first and foremost, being free of unnecessary suffering.
yes, you've already
It's
survived it.
Yep,
Let's clear it out of you.
it's your birthright. It's your birthright. And here you are, you survived it. You want to. You know you're a spiritual being having a human experience. So let's help you to really embody that in a sustained, uninterrupted way. Because how do we know what's getting interrupted? Reaction, reaction, trigger, reaction, reaction. And when we experience that healing in our body, we really can naturally respond. It's one or the other. It's like you can look at yourself as if you're in a, I love tennis, so this to me is a a fun visual, right? Like every scene we're experiencing in our life is like the ball's coming back to you. And are you sending it back over from the ability to respond, or are you like whack-a-doodling it back with a reaction, and then
Yeah,
you're John McEnroeing, you know, your tennis racket, and it's one or the other. And the life will show you how reactive you are, and how reactive you are shows you you simply have unattended grief, sorrow, loss, or pain still in your body. It
yeah.
is that black and white.
It's
And
that black and white.
every time we're reactive, we are disconnected from ourselves as spiritual beings. So that's the difference of being between a sustained experience of yourself as a spiritual being, playing the character that you are with a big nod and a wink, versus every time we get reactive, we become spiritually disconnected.
And
One of
emotionally disconnected, you know, even if spirituality is not your jam, you know, the moment you react, you are out of connection to other people, connection to yourself, connection, you know, it's like it's just as significant, isn't it?
Well, right, and for each of you listening, you can think, well, what does it look like and sound like, and how does it present when I'm upset, right? When I'm
Yes.
upset, do you I when I have been really upset, I felt things like words I would use to describe it is I feel dense. I
Hmm.
feel all of a sudden
Hmm.
much heavier. I
Yeah.
feel like I've gone down a long hallway of isolation and others are very far away. It feels heavy. There's heavy density
Yeah.
around that reactivity. So each of you wants to examine, wow, what are my signatures and flavors and
Mhm.
textures of when I'm reactive?
And I always say your triggers tell the tale of the trauma. And trauma can be big T stuff, you know, like those very severe experiences, but the little T's, you know, breakups, divorces, miscarriages, they are just as significant. And then what I call,
Not getting chosen to be on a team, birthday invitations going out in your classroom and the mom didn't send enough, so you don't get one. Like it's
yeah.
those moments.
And then what I also add is what I call the inverted T, which is the stuff that didn't happen, is sometimes way more impactful to your beliefs, to your personas, to the way you interact, react, is the love that you didn't get, the support that you didn't get, this acknowledgement that you didn't get, because when something isn't there, you don't even know it's not there. And then it silently infuses and infects every part of you, and then it only really pops up through the triggers, whether it's fear, anger, sadness, reactions, whatever it is.
So how would you, if somebody were listening to this and, sitting with this, and maybe they're wondering, well, how do I know if I need, if there's anything that seeks some closure? Like, how do I genuinely know? Like, I think I dealt with X, I think
Yeah.
I released Y, and I think I'm okay with Z.
Yes.
How would someone really start to go about through the process, whether it's awareness or a different lens? How would somebody start to more consciously recognize, oh,
Mhm.
that's what they were talking about.
Mhm.
This is evidence of, oh, there's something unattended to.
Mhm. Um, I think we need to set it up a little before we dive in. So, what I call the three-pronged setup is, first of all, we are all full of trauma. We need to get rid of this idea that it's just a couple of people out there, you know, no.
And
We
there's
have,
no culture that is, are there cultures that are more traumatized, less traumatized, or is
I
every culture have equal and varying shades of trauma?
I think there is the human experience that is in every culture, but I would say certain cultures revere repression more than others, and it's also, I think, a kind of a time thing, historically, our grandparents did not speak about what happened to them. And so now we are getting more into a place where you can talk about what's happened. So, first of all, it's not an if you had trauma, we all have it. Most of us are full to the eyeballs of it. So let's first come to a place of acceptance. Yay! We've all got it. Then we need to really get into the next setup piece, which is time does not heal anything. It just means that you've managed to stick some more boxes at the front, and now the stuff has happened is a bit further back. But the problem with it being further back means it's affecting your physical body. It can affect your blood sugar, blood pressure, inflammation, your cortisol, your hormones. It literally affects every single part of your body. And then the third piece that I want to set up is people have this misunderstanding that if you you would have trauma if you're constantly crying or constantly having nightmares or constantly, thinking about it. Absolutely. Constantly talking about it to your friends or your family and constantly thinking about it are some signs of it. But the majority of us don't even notice it on a day-to-day basis because it's not a big neon sign on the front of your forehead. It's hidden. It's hidden in your beliefs about yourself, about other people, about the world. It's hidden in your habits, in your procrastination, in your ability to self-care. It is definitely completely hidden in your relationships because guess what? When you've been through a lot of trauma, you pick people that feel familiar. And so your relationships are a huge sign of what happened in the past. And then the absolute gaping obvious place is, like my doctor said to me, if you have any kind of chronic systemic illness, you must go and look there for sure. And also, I would add that I personally often also see problems with work and with money and with creativity when, people say to me, oh, nothing big happened, and then there's problems. Your life will always display it. And the most obvious place is obviously in your reactions to when people or events come along that give you that either that whoosh in the body or, you know, a reaction of fight, flight, freeze, people please, that is carrying the essence of fear, anger, sadness, overwhelm, grief, loss, such a thing.
Mhm. Okay, beautiful. So with that setup, tell
Yeah.
us a little more then. How would somebody really they're going about their week, right? What would the homework assignment be then
What would you?
for someone, saying, "Okay, I'm curious, right? I'm curious to what am I looking for?"
In terms of trauma, or
Yeah,
how
yeah.
to, right. Oh, there, I'll tell you a bit about the sessions that I do. That'll give you a little bit of insight. Obviously, I share my weekly highlights in your lovely community as well on a Friday. Um, I have a very wide array of things. Some people come to me just for individual topics. So that can be, I'm going through a divorce, or I have gone through a divorce. I say to everyone, if you're going through a divorce where there are children involved and you have to keep co-parenting them, please get closure before you do any of that, because otherwise your children will bear the brunt of the emotions that you have not unprocessed. That is not a judgment. Divorce is horrible on your nervous system, and I would rather you go into, setting up the ongoing lives of your children from a place of calm and clarity and civil understanding how this is going to go. So divorce is a big one. Grief and loss is a big one. People also come to me about adverse child events that can be either stuff that happened or things that didn't happen. It can even be things that were witnessed, like an alcoholic parent or an ill. Um, the dynamic between the two parents. If I had a secret wish, I wish that everybody could just right off the bat do their childhood and their parents, because that stuff was imprinted into your mind when you didn't even have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. So you didn't even know that all those pictures were silently downloaded to you. Your parents didn't know any better either. Not only were they silently downloaded into your brain, also you were taught no emotional life skills, nothing about nervous system regulation, nothing about relationships, nothing about self-esteem, self-care, nothing. So not only do you get dumped with all of these unhelpful pictures, you also have absolutely no chance of knowing what to do with them.
We were really taught very little of anything you said.
Nothing.
Like, like, and then you're 18 and go, right? Like,
Go. And then eventually in your adult life, you go, why do I keep getting into the same pattern with work or money or people and relationships and friendships? And you just go, I probably need to do better. No, it's not about putting in more or doing better. It's about going right to the root that is still hooking that behavior and unhooking it from whatever person, place, or experience bore to life that coping strategy, because that's what these things are all doing. They're trying to help you cope with what's going on from the place of what you've been through.
and here's the world of addictions. The simple definition I love about addiction is, and it's very logical what we turn to. It's not, there's no coincidence in what it is individuals turn to
Yeah,
simply change the way they feel,
yeah,
right? Whereas for one person, weed is their go-to. It gives
mm,
them access to a state that they ideally want, but don't, and yet don't know how to access without the support of that substance. Whereas somebody different, the weed person is not going to turn to cheese nips, right? The cheese nips solves a different problem.
yes,
So that I love the study of addiction. I love when I work
mm,
with addictive clients, which is most everyone. And again,
yes,
if you're listening to this live or on replay, there's no judgment here.
no,
It's wonderful inventory to continually examine through the lens of this simple question. What is it I turn to change the way I feel?
yes,
And let it be revealed. It might be caffeinated chai. It might be you go for a run, right? There's
yeah,
a range, an arc of,
yeah,
what's nourishing for yourself versus what isn't. But nonetheless, we want to, at least with that level of self-honesty and self-awareness, know where we're at in our life in relation to habits, patterns, and addictions.
yeah,
And we simply turn to things to change the way we feel until we have the capacity to navigate what we're experiencing in real time and how we're feeling
yeah.
with different tools.
Yeah, I
Even
think
feel time is the key.
yeah, I think the biggest misconception about addictions is that it's about getting high or escaping. No, it's about feeling normal. People use substances and people. I always say most human beings are self-medicating with social media, Netflix, their children. A lot of people are self-medicating themselves with their children, and when those children leave, all of a sudden everything comes crashing down. I think also just modern life and busyness, and you can be completely dependent on your spin cycle class, or your, I don't know what else, it's your weekly salsa lessons. It's like, this is one of the problems about modern life is we get up, we're immediately in the snowball effect of media and busyness and activity, and there is never a space. Like historically we would have to sit by the river and wash clothes without any mental stimulation, or cook food from scratch. There was no radio, there was no TV. So historically we had many moments. You had to walk for an hour with no phone or headphones in your ear.
A podcast, no music.
Podcast.
No.
So there were many moments of awareness and introspection that we simply do not have today. And, this idea that addiction is just those people over there that take drugs or use alcohol. No, absolutely not. Is like, if you depend on, a food or a Netflix binging session in order to feel okay, then you are self-medicating, which is completely normal because nobody has taught you how to gain closure. Nobody has taught you how to nervous system regulate. Nobody has ever taught you how to feel your feelings and move through them. Nobody.
No.
And this is the key piece that now ties in the importance of, how does the phoenix actually rise? How does the phoenix manage to watch itself burn to dust and then stand back up again and rise into this rebirth and renewal? Well, you've got to clear the past. There is no other way. You cannot rise with the heaviness of what has happened to you, large or small, in any kind of way. You must shed it. You must actually physically shed it to be able to be rebirthed into this new form, which I now look at myself all those years back and I go, I cannot actually fathom the process. And I couldn't possibly pinpoint exactly where it happened, but without a doubt, I am a truer, I'd like to think wiser, more authentic, deeply compassionate, and just more incredibly calm and trustful of the process now than I could have ever dreamed was possible. But I will say it wasn't always pretty along the way. It wasn't always pretty.
No, it's usually horrific.
It
And
was.
burning, right? And for anyone here with us live or on replay, you can find your own Phoenix chapters. Like they exist. No one gets out of this alive without several iterations
Yeah.
of, burn it down, dust off, and
Yeah. And that comes again and again, doesn't it? Relationships fall apart, businesses fall apart, friendships fall apart. Um,
health.
I was going to say, you and I had the complete disintegration of our health, and there are definitely long, dark corridors in those experiences where you feel completely and utterly abandoned by life, the universe, whatever you want to call it. But usually, those really dark moments are the moments where you are invited to sit still and realize that actually the most profound anchor is already within you. And I don't say that lightly at all, at all. I've been through many of those dark moments, where through the illness I couldn't walk anymore or talk anymore or breathe properly anymore, where I just thought, that's it, that's it. There were so many times I went to sleep at night thinking I'm probably not going to wake up. And those, I mean, in the beginning, I didn't yet have a way to calm the nervous system down to a place where I could. So, and so they just did feel like incredibly cruel jokes of, I don't know, a hand that was dealt me, not realizing that it was actually those moments that were burning away all the pieces that I no longer needed and couldn't keep carrying to step into this role that I'm now in. And I am, to anyone who's going through tough times, large or small, I guarantee you that there is a version of you on the other side that is more profoundly connected to all of life, to your heart and the hearts of others than you could ever have possibly imagined. I'm going to get a bit choky.
I can't say a word because I'm everything's blurry and
And you just got to go. You just got to get to the next day. Just get to the next day and the next day and the next day. And obviously, I'm going to talk a lot in these podcasts about havening and how I found that in all the modalities that I studied to quite a significant depth, it was for me the only one that really, in a phenomenally short amount of time, really cleaned up. There was no lingering things along that then did allow me to, yeah, have a vision of what I would like the process to birth. And I always say to people, you can always have like an idea of where it's going, but the outcome will always blow your mind because it will be so much more spectacular than you could have ever imagined. And yeah, I can't believe we're here.
oh my gosh, so that sweet younger version of you that wasn't sure if
Oh,
she oh to wake up or not. But you touched on something that I think is so essential. It even bears repeating and perpetual reiteration is that when you're in those darkest times, that's when the burning is happening.
that is,
That is when the tapasya is happening. That is when the burning away of that which you are not. And it also clears the path for sometimes there are qualified helpers, healers, guides
yeah,
enter in. And sometimes that is what we need in those
yeah,
darkest. You and I had helpers and healers. I mean, in hindsight, do I wish they came sooner? Yeah. Do I wish they knocked on my door and I didn't have to go through that burning?
yeah,
Yeah. Um, and and friends, this may be for you or for someone you know that is really going through their own challenge. You don't have to go through it alone. You're gonna go through it no matter what.
yeah,
If you're in it, and Reina, this is one of the many gifts of even just one session with Reina is so it's life-changing in that it puts the story of your life, and especially whatever you're going through currently, in a context that speaks to who you are becoming. It brings such clarity to the clarifying process. And that is
absolutely.
what that burning is. We are, and again, friends, you can find this for yourself. Find another chapter that was excruciating that you went through. And where are you now? In what ways did that authentically grow you? And what is it that you are now living as a result of that experience that you didn't have access to live previously? Right? That is the purpose of every fire and storm that we go through.
Yeah,
It's the journey, it's the literal journey of becoming. And
Yeah.
I don't know anyone, and I have been in the world like Stephanie for many, many years in the field of psychology, spiritual education. I don't know anyone that has ever really gone through their own purifying process or processes and been able to really live with a very calm and regulated nervous system
Yeah.
alone. I don't know anyone that has done that without some expert guidance. And in
Absolutely.
my world, it is one of the reasons that we have that resources are useful for. Are it is one of the greatest benefits of having, some resources is
Yeah.
invest in yourself,
Yeah.
invest in your wellness.
Yeah. I One of the things I talk about a lot is I, d- I don't think that any of the practices or modalities mean badly in any kind of way. And I
Nope.
also think every avenue has some really profound benefit and some really severe shortcomings. So in my journey, I when I got so severely ill and was looking for that support and that stability, I went down the avenue of psychology and went to therapy. And what that gave me was a fantastic vocabulary of what had happened. And I learned about attachment theory and trauma and what trauma is and what isn't. And then I said, okay, and can we now get rid of it? And the answer that came back was, no, we learn to live with it. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound fantastic at all. And so I then went deeply back down the rabbit hole of personal development and more cognitive stoicism. And I realized that although that initially felt really powerful, I'm going to charge forward, I realized that constantly I was being triggered and stuff came up through, charging forward that was just looping me back into the past through beliefs and reactions. And I'm like, well, no, the past is always present. So what do I do now? And then I went down the rabbit hole again of spirituality. And that has profound benefits of asking, about meaning, and that there is a journey to your life, and that going through difficult times, apart from ripping you to shreds, also gives you skills and awakenings and shifts in perspective and perception that are quite important to what I believe is the culmination of your journey here. But the missing piece that we already spoke about earlier is the physical body. And this is what all of these modalities seem are just missing, that actually you are here in a physical body. Your physical body is experiencing this life. It must be your first point of
It is your
help.
access.
Yeah.
It is what will cause your spiritual disconnection or your sense of disconnection.
Yeah.
And it is your access to connection. It is your access to freedom. It is your
Yeah,
access.
both emotionally and spiritually.
Yes.
It, it's like I don't know how we got into this pickle about forgetting about the body. I don't actually know how that happened.
Well, okay, I haven't thought about this enough, but off the cuff, I just saw flashes from my own childhood, right? I grew up with a mother. My mother was really an incredible force. And and I always remember the diet culture. So I
Hmm.
grew up in a generation where the care of the body was the diet culture.
Right.
Then it evolved into like jazzercise and aerobics.
Hmm.
Yet the exercise was to the whole fat-free like margarine, fat-free this, fat-free that, more processed food. So exercise and diet was about body image. It was
Right.
not about health
No.
or well-being. And I think many of us were impacted by the ripples of that.
Yeah.
So none of us were taught
No,
What actually do you look at in the body as measures of its wellness or of its state of health or imbalance?
absolutely.
And it is only, in my opinion, and I would say the last 5 years that we have people like Casey Means, Andrew Huberman, Dr. Amen, people, Mindy Pels that are coming, that are now on podcasts, being broadcast, that are speaking about the fundamentals of metabolic functioning,
Mm,
what health, how do you actually measure
mm,
one's health or not, right? Well beyond body mass index and
yeah.
fat and it's the first time that we are seeing so publicly how poisoned we have been in our waters, in our medicines,
The
in our
whole other
home,
episode.
our home environments, in our products,
Yeah.
and in our food. Right? If you are someone that innocently even thinks, well, I have the privilege of shopping at Trader Joe's or Sprouts or Whole Foods, Green Star. There is as much poisonous processed foods in these markets. Is there Whole Foods? Of course. But there's equally the marketing even now, in healthy foods is
Yeah.
still ultra processed.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's not. They
Yeah.
present it and package it like it's not.
And
So
of course, there's toxins everywhere else, right? In the water, in the air, huge onslaught of toxins through the body products we use, makeup, cleaning products. The list just goes on and on and on.
Oh, we could do a whole fun episode.
Yeah.
I can just bring out, I wonder if Christopher could help us. We could screen share test results to show you, right? So, it's between Stephanie and I, we have invested over the years in many different tests, don't guess, because I especially really needed to prove to myself. Like I have those sound bites in the back of my head, when my sons, one of my sons, when one of my son's father had cancer and we opted to do a natural treatment called Gerson therapy before considering any pharmaceutical treatment for his cancer. And I remember my dad, oh, he was livid. He was scared. So underneath anger is fear, right?
Wait,
He was livid. He was like, Jesus H. Christ, if you could heal cancer with apples and effing oranges, that would be on the 6 o'clock news, right?
well,
Yet,
that's usually why it's not on the 6 o'clock
exactly.
because it doesn't make any pharmaceutical company any money.
Yeah. So I went down the rabbit hole in order to really figure out A, what was going on with my health. And
Yeah.
in hindsight now, I can see that
Yeah.
there were some autoimmune challenges spanning decades
Yeah.
that explain a lot of things.
Yeah.
But like many people here that had a very nice primary care physician and ordered the basic blood work that you get, and they look at it through standard, normal lab ranges that are based on a sick population, everything looks normal. It lands in the green zone.
Yeah.
So your labs don't indicate anything's going on.
Yeah.
So
And
I
then there's also the division, isn't there? The compartmentalization of we've just completely disconnected the mind from the body. And yet, if you just scratch the surface, the body affects the mind without a doubt, and the mind affects the body. So it's a two-way system, you know?
Well, that to me is the reason that so many people are not reaping more lasting, impactful benefits from
Yeah.
their metaphysical,
Yeah.
spiritual, and energetic practices. Because when
Absolutely.
the body is not in health, and many of us actually think our bodies are in health, we're
Yeah.
healthy enough.
Yeah. Enough. Yeah.
Your nervous system is dysregulated. So all you're doing with these practices is treading water.
Yes. And the most important thing that just shocked me so severely was that if you have very intense experiences along your life, either in a moment or over time, you can actually set your nervous system at a high hum that you then become accustomed to as normal, and you don't even notice it that you're always alert. Or in my case, I just thought it was a quirk of my personality that, you know, I always knew where the exits were, and I didn't like, big, busy rooms, and I couldn't go to rock concerts or big gatherings of people. I thought it was because we've been down that. That's a whole episode by itself. Is an empath, or yes, no? So we'll explore that later on.
Love that. I love that.
About, yeah, or is my nervous system just on fire because of a combination of the things that have happened to me, and in my case, mold and heavy metals and parasitic infections? Because anybody that goes on a detox will tell you that a whole lot of your emotions come up and calm down when you do detox work. And by now, luckily, a lot of functional medicine consultants, naturopath, nutritionists in that more holistic field absolutely insist that you do nervous system and closure work alongside the functional, metabolic, nutritional work, because they go hand in hand. There is no division. I know in mainstream medicine, we've kind of, I mean, the most significant one is that dentistry is completely separated from mainstream medicine, which is insane. It is complete insanity. You know, I think through this whole specialization, we've gotten into this pickle where we've just separated things, where it is a ridiculous concept. Your mind affects your body affects your mind, your environment affects everything, the relationships you are in affect everything. It's just all of it is always affecting you all the time.
Yeah, well said. So friends, we have stories and we have suggested pathways and solutions for you, so that if you don't have to go through 12-year or 5-year or 2-year transits, we have done the legwork for you. I'm thrilled beyond measure to share with you lab result after lab result, so that you don't have to go spend this money for yourself, because what was revealed in all of my functional medicine lab work, you are navigating as well, and you don't need to spend the money to prove it to yourself. I needed to prove it to myself so I could then prove it to you. So I could first and foremost get myself healthy and well, and then you could benefit. You all here could benefit from the investments. And Stephanie is masterful in pathways forward of bringing the body back into a state of clearing and cleanliness. She's very knowledgeable about. We're going to talk about parasites, friends. 90% of people, if not more, have them.
Yes.
Like it or not. Like that idea or not, it's a fun fact.
It's a fun fact.
Mold toxicity is an enormous, right? And the list can feel very overwhelming. When we rattle off, they're all of the things.
But like we said, I always say, yes, we are full of everything. And that may vary at times, and we'll go into what everything is. But the answer is always the same. Unburden the immune system through detox. And even that is really simple. You do not necessarily need to go if you do not have the funds. Our grandparents detoxed naturally with foods. This is not some kind of, thing you need a PhD for or have to spend a lot of money on. We did, because we didn't know.
Well, we needed to prove it to ourselves. And
we needed to prove it to ourselves.
We had to guinea pig ourselves, right? And we don't want anyone just following the rando.
Oh no, please don't.
Do not do that. Like, just don't go out and start, eating chia seeds thinking, well, this gets rid of parasites, because I saw.
You will end up in the ER with. There is actually cyanide in papaya seeds. Did you know that?
I knew that they were an apricot.
Yeah.
So we have some very strategic,
Good.
effective, not crazy expensive
No.
pathways forward that you can do because bringing your body into
Yes.
metabolic wellness makes all the other work effective.
Yeah. Like I said, it has to go hand in hand. You cannot expect your body to come to health if you don't also clear and clean out the traumatic, overwhelming things that have happened to you that you might not think are significant. And I think we'll do a whole episode on, but if already you can ask yourself questions like, what has happened to me that if I could go back, I would change or erase? What has happened to me that I don't wish on my loved ones and my children? These are already questions, and we'll go into that much, much more. And, what do I think is not significant that keeps popping up again and again and again? So we'll talk about more than, yeah. So the message that I would like to champion is there is no division between the mind and the body. You have to attend to both of them because they are one and the same thing.
And in my world, that is what your spiritual life
Of
is.
course it is.
Right? And remember, friends, like we don't need practices so that we can relax. Relax is the effect of all this. And as one of my dear mentors used to always say, when you're relaxed, it's as if divinity itself has settled right inside of you.
Beautiful. And of course, there are also many quotes about the mind. You've given me so many as well. Was it Jung that said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So the things that you think are just, oh, that just happened, let's have a deeper look at that, shall we?
Happy birthday, Stephanie.
Happy birthday. And I wish for all of those of you who are listening in those really dark moments is that let us be the light on the horizon that will assure you that you too will rise up and that we will be here for that process and to support you and to hold your hand and give you the hope.
Thank you. I love you. And thank you, friends, for being with us today on episode 1 of Rise Like a Phoenix. We will see you soon.
Bye bye.